software-related technology can be patentable, but in certain cases, not everything. This video is going to provide some information about how you can examine or draft claims to help get a patent application granted if it's software related. Hi, my name is Derek Fahey, and this is going to be a video about software patent eligibility and the guidance that's been put out by the United States Patent and Trademark Office. I'm with a Plus IP firm. I'm a registered patent attorney. I do this on a daily and weekly basis, drafting and working with software patent applications. And I'm going to be going over in this particular video that's example number 46 in the 2019 patent eligibility guidance. It's called the 2019 PEG Patent Eligibility Guidance that's been put out by the USPTO. It's been very helpful for me in my practice, and hopefully you find it helpful as well. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to share my screen here. So this is going to be a claim that's been put out by the Patent Office, and let me describe the technology. It's essentially a system for monitoring the health and activity of livestock. Essentially what they have is they have sensors that are put up all around all these different animals, and they have an RFID reader and a transmitter, and they have a interface where the farmer can actually put information in related to Betsy. So for example, Betsy ate a certain amount of feed. They moved around a certain amount. They have this interaction, all this information. They can manually put it into an interface called a livestock interface. They can also receive that information via sensor. And that sensor actually would be activated, or the system would actually receive would transmit the information to the system via radio frequency reader. And essentially when the animals within a certain proximity of the reader, the sensor would transmit it to the reader would receive it, and then the software processor can perform its analysis and then monitor the livestock, and then it can actually open a gate and close a gate automatically to isolate that animal in order to give it help, give it medicine, etc. So that's kind of what the invention is. So let's talk about how it was claimed. This is example number 46. It's claim 1. And first off, I'm going to go through the test. It's a 2-part test. It actually has part 1 and part 2, but part 2 has part 2A, part 2A, part 2A prong 1 and part 2A prong 2, and then it has part 2B. Okay, so we're going to go through this together, a few of these claims, and I'll do my best to explain it. It was very helpful for me, and I hopefully you find helpful as well. So a system first off, claim 1 was found to be ineligible. And the reason why it was found to be ineligible, based upon the information that I've read, is actually because it was actually drafted with a high level of, it did not include enough detail, I think, to be considered non-abstract or patent eligible. And let's go through it. It's a system for monitoring health and activity in a daily livestock, comprising a memory, nothing new, a display, nothing new, a processor coupled to the memory to receive instructions. And I'm going to paraphrase this because we don't have a lot of time here. I want to keep it short. A livestock interface for obtaining information, about the body position, the temperature, the feeding behavior, and movement pattern data. Notice it does not include a sensor here. Okay, that's really critical. Okay, if you look at this little part here, it does not include a sensor. All right, so I'll explain what that means in a second. And a monitoring component. It says it compares all the data. It analyzes the data and then displays the results on a screen. The patentability guidance finds that this claim is not patentable subject matter. And the test really goes like this. First, you have to go through prong 1. Prong 1 of the test, basically always, if it's software, is going to be, the answer is yes, and you're going to move into the next prong, the next the next step, excuse me. So the first step in the analysis is going to be, is the claim a process, a machine, a manufacturer, or composition of nature? And the answer is yes. I'm not going to go whether it's yes or no, and why that is not really important. Generally speaking, step one for software patent applications in most cases will be yes. Then you move to step 2A, prong 1. So the next step for in step 2A is whether or not the claim, the recites information, the recited language in the claim is actually directed to a digital exception, right? Whether or not it's considered an abstract idea. And in this particular case, they found it was yes, it was not directed to an abstract idea under step 2A. And the reason why they said is, listen, if you take this broadest reasonable interpretation of the claim, this livestock interface, you could have someone typing in information into the actual interface, and then it's just going to monitor it by comparing the data, analyzing it based upon predetermined patterns, and then displaying results on a screen. And the court found, well, the guidance basically says that that's actually an abstract idea. Okay, that's step 2A, prong 1. Now, prong 2 asks whether or not it actually integrates the information into, well, let me back up. Whether or not the reason why it describes an abstract idea is because one of the questions you have to ask is, can it be performed by the human mind or some sort of mental thought? And they basically, in the guidance explains that yes, all this information, if you're just going to be typing in information, all this information in here is really just observing data, and that is actually a mental process of just grouping ideas, of grouping, just a mental process of making the observations and then displaying the results. So that would not be considered not an abstract idea. So they found it was an abstract idea. So then once you have finished step 2A, prong 1, you have to move to step 2A, prong 2. And that what you're trying to do here is to see if it's recited to a practical application. And what does this mean? Well, this really means that, what is the practical application of this? Is it enough? Okay. And basically it said that it does not actually give it to a practical application because it's recited too broad. Okay. It's just too broad, as what they said in the patent eligibility guidance. They said it's how essentially it was just well, you may say, well, what about the memory? What about the display? What about the processor? What about the monitoring component? Well, what they're saying is it's just using other components or computer components in order to essentially link this abstract ideas, and it's known as actually merely extra solution, or another term that you will see widely used, and they will actually examine in step 2A, prong 2. Step 2A, prong 2 is whether or not it's considered well understood routine and conventional. And if all these things are well understood, routine and conventional, they say that the guidance basically and the law is that how it's going to be considered an abstract idea. After step 2A, prong 2, then you can move to step 2B. And that's actually where you you look to see whether or not you provide something substantially more. And generally speaking, the substantially more, you have to take the claim as a whole, whether the claim as a whole recites something substantially more. For example, in the software space, you may have this very routine components, but organized in a particular way, and that may be something that's substantially more. In this particular case, they didn't find that it was substantially more. It really didn't add any inventive concepts. You're just, receiving data from an interface, like a basic interface. You're analyzing and you're displaying the results. and that wasn't found good enough to be considered an inventive concept. Okay, so that's because we got to step 2A, step 2B, and it was found to not provide something substantially more. This claim was considered patent ineligible. Now we're going to move to claim 2. All right, so claim 2 includes some additional elements from claim 1, and more particularly, it says there's a feed dispenser, and then says the monitoring component of claim 1 actually automatically sends a signal to send a certain amount of salt, all right, to the feed dispenser to dispense a certain amount of salt. Okay, so now this particular claim, actually, the guidance actually found that it was considered patent eligible, and the reason why it was found patent eligible was because it was actually linked to a practical solution. They found that how all the information from claim 1, because this was linked to a practical solution, when you take it in a whole, it was actually considered patent eligible. So because even though the claim 1 was recited broadly, because it automatically sent a signal to dispense amounts of salt, that particular practical solution added a meaningful limitation so that how it would be considered patent eligible. And in this particular case, that claim 2 was found patent eligible. Now, claim 4, and I have stared at these different claims and work with this in software quite a bit, and this one kind of really hits home, and this is why I'm actually talking about it on this video. So let's to recap for claim 1. Claim 1 is not patent eligible. We went through step 1, step 2, A, prong 1, step 2A, prong 2, and then we went through step 2B. Okay. Notice how in general these claim elements are. An interface. There's no talk about a sensor here. It just says an interface for obtaining data. Well, because of that, I think that if you would include some more information, maybe obtaining, for obtaining information received from the sensor when within a certain proximity of the radio transceiver or the signal receiver, that could be helpful to make this particular claim patent eligible. But claim 4, the guidance is such that this is actually eligible subject matter under step 2A. Okay, again, we go through step 1. We talked about step 1. Is this claim a process, a machine, a manufacturer, or composition of matter? And obviously, it's a combination of process and a machine. It's got a system. It's got some steps in here. It's got a processor. All right. So then you move to step 2A, which is this claim directed to an abstract idea? And they found that it was not. And the reason why they found it was not, that how unlike claim 1, which describes the system in generality and does not include the radio transmitters and readers, this one does. It says a herd monitor. Okay, I'll read it fully, but a system for monitoring health and activity of a herd of a dairy livestock comprising a memory, a processor, okay, having these instructions, wherein the animal-specific information comprises identification of data, body position, temperature data, feeding behavior data, and movement pattern data. And then a herd monitor. And this herd monitor has a radio frequency reader for collecting animal-specific information from the animal sensors attached to the animals when the animals are within a certain proximity of a radio frequency transmitter. And then each animal sensor having a radio frequency transponder and transmitting the transmitter transmitting the collected data to the livestock interface. So this actually spells out how the interface actually is getting the information. So the guidance actually shows that this particular claim element is they actually find this patent eligible subject matter under step 2A. They say that how it's not directed to an abstract data because it includes this information and is not recited in generality like claim 1. So I thought this claim in particular was really interesting. The guidance does note that how this does not talk about 103, and there may be some other issues as well. But for software patent applications, this is one of the biggest issues you're going to face. And hopefully this explanation of the guidance was helpful. Just in summary, it's very difficult, especially if you're using software you're dealing with software to get a patent. If you're going to recite the claim in very general terms, it's going to be difficult to get around this 35 USC 101 issue, which is whether or not the claim recites patentable subject matter, and under 35 USC 101. So hopefully you found this video helpful. I find that the combination and the comparing of claim 1, 2, and 4 is very helpful for me to kind of analyze and when I draft software applications. Hope you do too. If you have any questions, you can always give us a call. My email address is derek@plusfirm.com. You can find us on our website, www.plusfirm.com. And if you have any questions, just reach out to us. If you liked this, if you enjoyed this post, please like and subscribe.